Hi, I am Dr. Renee Matthews, and I'm a medical doctor. And hopefully, some of the nuggets I give you today will be very helpful. Why are mentors so important? Mentors are so important because they can help you to learn things that you won't learn in college or high school or elementary school or even in the workplace. They can teach you things that just aren't going to be found in the books. And it's better to talk to and learn from and listen to mentors because they will be the people who have been through these things and they've already made the mistakes. So why do you need to go and make those same mistakes again? So I think the biggest thing is to figure out what kind of mentor you need. So I'm just going to tell you my story. I always wanted to be a doctor, and that went all the way back to when I was 6 years old in Brownies. And one of the young ladies, her dad was a obstetrician gynecologist, and he let us come into his office, and he performed an ultrasound on one of the girls. And from that day forward, I said, "This is what I want to do." Of course, there was no baby in there or anything, but for whatever reason, I just was drawn to that field. I said, "This looks like the job for me." So I was a sick child. I have severe asthma, and so I was often in hospitals. So I spent a lot of time in hospitals. I was very familiar with hospitals, so that wasn't a big deal. But I never was able to see firsthand, like I did that day, an OBGYN. So I watched every TV program, every movie with a delivery. I watched every documentary about deliveries. I just absorbed it. Now, fast forward, I'm in high school, and my mother's friend is a pediatrician, and everyone knew I wanted to be a doctor. So she was one of my mentors. I went and worked with her for a summer, and that was a very educational summer. I learned a lot, and I learned I did not want to be a pediatrician. I love children, and children love me, but as a pediatrician, I did not feel the love because, of course, summertime, we were giving all of the vaccinations for the upcoming school year, and the children were not happy. They were running from us, basically, and I just said, I am accustomed to children loving me and being so excited to see me. So for the fact that they weren't excited, I didn't like that very much. So that was a great learning tool. I did not want to do that. Senior year of high school, we had this thing called Career Day where you could go and shadow a person in the career that you want to be in, or you could just take the day off from school. So, of course, my goal was to shadow someone. My father worked with a man whose daughter was an OBGYN, and I called her and she said I could come for the day. That was for a long time, the best day of my life. I came home and was just swinging from the chandeliers. I was so excited and knew that this is what I could do for the rest of my life and be really happy. My mother, of course, was like, "So what did you do?" Because of course it's an OBGYN's office and I am not a medical student, nor am I a doctor or a resident. And so my mother's like, "What could you have possibly done?" I said, "Oh, she let me go in the patient's room. She just asked their permission. They said yes, and I went. And I even performed my first pap smear that day." And my mother was just spellbound. She could not believe it that these people said yes to letting this little girl come into the rooms. But they did. And I got to see exactly what I would be seeing, a bunch of vaginas, of course. But it excited me. This is what I wanted to do. I loved it. And so she is my mentor to this day. I think that that was a very, very important thing for me to learn early on was that I could handle it. And then after that, I went to college. And the first year I was going to be out of college for the summer and I was going to come back home. I was like, what am I going to do? So I got the idea to go to see if she would allow me to come to her office again. And she said she would pay me and I could come and work there every day with her. And so that was amazing because she didn't have to pay me because that was out of her own pocket. but she taught me so much, and she allowed me to go to surgery with her, deliveries with her. I had a little pager that I had bought, sneaking on the side from, my parents didn't know, but I had bought this pager, and she had my number, and she would page me in the middle of the night, and I had my own car, and I would go and meet her at the hospital, and we would do deliveries, surgery, whatever, the emergency was. So it was amazing. I did that for 4 summers while I was in college, and it was a great experience and a great lead into what was going to happen once I got into medical school. Um, so I totally, totally, totally believe in mentors. So once I finished medical school, I didn't get a residency right away. And God always has a plan. And sometimes you just have to have faith and just hold on and don't give up. And just know that He knows better than you know. And sure enough, he did. So I went to a conference for entertainment, females in entertainment. And I went to this conference and didn't know a soul. The conference was in my city where I lived. And so I said, oh, I'll just go because it's right here. And didn't know anyone. I ended up meeting a nice young lady that weekend. And she worked closely with an executive in the business. And then I ended up meeting that executive and hanging out with them. And talking to the executive, I told her I was a doctor. Now, most of the people, everyone else at the conference, I never mentioned I was a doctor. I would just say, my name's Renee. So I told her, and she said, what? Oh, from now on, you are Dr. Renee. And so that is how I got my name, Dr. Renee. That is my brand. You can Google Ask Dr. Renee or Dr. Renee, and you'll find me all sorts of places. So that's how I got my brand from her. From that day forward, I was Dr. Renee. And so that was Karen Taylor Bass. And to this day, because what happened was I ended up starting an entertainment company and did that on the side while I was still in the health field during the day. And she was the person who would, and I never thought she would, and I didn't ask her to, but when I sent out my first press release, she read it and critiqued it and sent me a message back and told me some things to fix. And um, I was by no means offended. If anything, I was more honored the fact that she felt the need to help me. And she didn't have to help me, but she helped me. And so I was overjoyed with that. So I say this to say they are so important. Mentors are so important. Now, to figure out what kind of mentor you need to figure out what it is you want to do. Find out exactly what you want to do. And with this day and age of us having the internet and Google and all this wonderful stuff, all you have to do is search for your field and find the person that's in your town that you could go and sit and talk to, or maybe you can get 5 or 10 minutes with them on the phone. And then with Twitter, you can easily, most people are on Twitter. You could tweet them and say hi, but if you introduce yourself and you explain what you're looking for, they may respond. They may not, but they may respond. And you could, you never know where it could go from there. I will tell you my other story. Elvira Guzman, I knew who she was because I listened to the Steve Harvey show and I'd heard him mention her, and I knew the name, and so I ended up somehow following her on Twitter, and I would say stuff here and there, and she'd actually respond, and I was like, oh. And then one of my friends said that she knew her personally, and I said, wow, I'm really impressed by her, just her whole business. Now I didn't even know her backstory, her life, which is just amazing. But I just knew her company and, how she ended up when she worked with Steve and then transitioning from that. So I was just really, really impressed. And I was going to California and I said, it'd be great if we could meet. And that first time we weren't able to meet, just her schedule, my schedule. But the next time I said it'd be awesome. And we actually were able to meet, and the rest is history. So thank you, Elvira, for this opportunity, and thank you for, being a sister friend to me now. I'm so glad that we were able to connect, and that I know we have great things coming in the future because of, and even though Elvira is younger than me, but I still look to her as a mentor because I'm impressed by what she has done in this business, and I know there's a lot I can learn from her. So that's the other thing with being getting a mentor. They might be older, they might be younger, but you need to respect their time and understand that they know more than you do, and you have something to learn. And so it's a lot of listening. So why should you get in the medical field? I think that anyone gets in the medical field has to have a passion for helping people. And when I say helping people, I mean helping people, anybody, all walks of life. I worked in Cook County Hospital in Chicago. If you've seen the TV show ER, that's what it's based off of. We saw literally all walks of life come into that emergency room, and you just have to be able to. And I think because I have lived in very diverse communities, I've lived in different countries. I'm able to get along with everyone and make everyone feel comfortable. And so I think that's very important. Medical school is not impossible. It's a long task. Medical school, then residency, and it's a long task. And if you are not up for that, then you probably shouldn't go into medicine. I think that medical school is expensive. Plus, you have to pay for undergrad too. So, your education alone is not cheap. And it's a very, very high price to pay if you are not passionate about helping people. I like helping people, so I knew that this was the thing for me. Like I said, that day after the OBGYN's office, my senior year of high school, I knew that I loved it. Um, Medicine has changed so drastically now that there's so many things you can do that don't entail you sitting in an office and writing prescriptions and seeing patients daily. And if you have a desire to do something outside of the norm, then please go for that as well. I am a medical journalist. I write for 5 online publications. I do radio shows. I'm the health correspondent on a couple radio shows I've guest spots on. I have done some TV spots where I was a medical correspondent for them. And I have my own radio show as well on a station that is for health professionals to gain more information about different diseases and situations in medicine. So I'm a medical journalist. I don't see patients daily. I don't see patients at all, really. I literally am trying to get all the information out to the masses. Sitting in an office every day was not, I found out that was not my thing. Um, I've delivered babies, and that's what I wanted to do. I did that, and I had a ball, and it was amazing. I remember my first delivery, I cried. It was just an awesome experience. I will never forget it. But I'm really happy doing what I do, and I know that I'm impacting my community and other communities even more because you put something online and it's anyone can see it anywhere. And so I love that what I talk about is important, and I'm able to explain it in a simple way that the layman can read it and understand how to save their mother, daughter, brother, sister, aunt, grandmother, whomever, because of what I've been able to, the information I've been able to empower them with. So I love what I do. But like I said, there's so many things to do in medicine. I did an interview with Dr. Ian Smith on my radio show, and we talked about it. And I mean, there are people like the TV show ER I mentioned. There was a doctor that worked on the set to help them to make everything look real. And so they got a producer credit. There's just so many things you can do that it's really important to do what you love. Um, and please explore because I'm sure that I haven't even scratched the surface of the things that you can do. That you can be an educator as well. I was an educator for a while in medicine, so you could teach. So there's just so much you can do, and the sky is truly the limit. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do it. I had several people tell me I would never be a doctor, and here I am. I had one goal. This leads me into the last topic I want to cover is protocols to success. When I was 6, I told you I wanted to be a doctor. So that was my whole goal. My whole life was to be a doctor. So when I finally graduated, I told my mom, I said, Mom, what do I do now? I have done it. This was my goal. Everything was for me to go to med school. I mean, my career, my college education, everything was pushing for that. Do good in high school so you can get into college, so you can get into med school. So what do I do now? So I have developed, you got to develop a plan, and you have to work your plan. I'm a Christian. I believe in prayer and faith, but faith without works is dead. You've got to push and push and work. And as long as you work hard, I'm telling you, the rewards will come. Like I said, I worked really hard in high school. I worked really hard in college. I worked really hard in medical school to make this happen. You have to develop a plan. Um, I think you need to have faith in something because at times it looks like it may never happen. But if you have faith in whatever it is, your higher power, please have faith in that and understand that you can do it. You just have to keep the faith. Don't give up, don't give in. I say you need to practice. So I was called a doctor for many years because I was so sickly, and I was in hospitals all the time and I knew what was going on. They just called me doctor anyway, so it wasn't a big deal. So I think that you need to practice, and so because people called me that, I fake it till you make it. Now, when I say fake it till you make it, do not get yourself into a sling, and you can't, you can't get yourself out of that. You've got to make sure that you're taking on things that you can actually take on. I take on things, and then if I figure out I don't know a piece of it, well, and easily I know I can call somebody who can walk me through it, talk me through it, and I can get it done for whoever it is, my client or whatever. I didn't know anything about radio, but I knew a lot of people that did. So therefore, I knew that I could say, yes, I can do a radio show. So it's just important that if you're going to fake it till you make sure you don't get yourself into a sling that you can't get yourself out of. And then one of the most important things is you've got to be persistent. You've got to persist. You can't give up. You've got to keep going. If you are persistent, promise it will eventually come. But don't bug people. There is a way to be persistent without bugging people. And you need to figure out that happy medium and shoot for it and just keep going, and you will persevere. You just have to keep going. It's not going to be easy, but it is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. You just have to stick with it. um, Let me take a few questions. 1 second. Okay, so um, is exposure important in every field? I think exposure is extremely important solely because just like I told you, I was exposed to pediatrics and decided that wasn't for me. So I didn't waste my time getting all the training and then being miserable. So I think exposure is important so that you save yourself time and money sometimes by doing these things and just following somebody, or maybe you talk to them and you're able to get the exposure that way by talking to them and them telling you, well, this is what I did and this is what I do every day. So you can find out. I went and shadowed. I was an engineering major before I switched to physiology. Physiology is the study of everything in the body, all the blood vessels and how the heart pumps and all the muscles, the joints, skin, everything, head to toe. So that fell in line really well with medical school. Engineering, my mother said I should get an engineering degree because if I don't get into medical school, I lived in Detroit, I could easily get a job in one of the big three with an engineering degree, especially being a black female. Well, I shadowed a lady that was an engineer for a day, and I literally was sitting there falling asleep. And it wasn't because I was tired, it was because I was bored to tears. And so I knew that that was not the place for me. Engineering was not it. So I had a very interesting road in college. I will tell you, it was very interesting. And my mentor, the my OBGYN doctor, Harold, she told me to come in her office, bring my program book from school, and shut the door. And she said, "You go through that program book and find a new major because engineering is not it." And that's how we came up with physiology. But had I had some exposure to more fields, I would have chose a different major. I still would have went to medical school, but I would have been a medical technologist. They are actually in the hospitals, in the operating rooms, right there with the doctors and nurses, and that would have been a great job to do while I was in medical school or in between undergrad and medical school to get paid to do that and utilize the skills that I love, which is patient care, hospitals, and medicine. So that's what I would have done, but I didn't know anything about it. There's so many things you can major in and still go to grad school for something completely different. I could have majored in public relations and went to grad school for medical school, went to medical school still, but just taking the prerequisites required for medical school. And I think that would have been cool too, but I didn't know anything about public relations. I just kind of fell into that afterwards. But um, I think it's really important to get exposure in your field just so you can have an idea of what's going on. The other question is, how can we encourage more female minorities to become doctors? I think that any female who has watched a loved one die or loved one be sick and had to sit there with them at the doctor's office and listen and try and understand what's going on, if you have the capacity to endure the schooling and and you feel you really want to help people, I think that's all the motivation you need to help your community. It's unfortunate that there's many people in our community that do not trust people that don't look like us, and it's unfortunate that a lot of times in our communities the doctors do not look like us. So it's so important to have females become doctors so that they can, well, minorities, excuse me, minority females become doctors so that in your community, people like you are practicing. And it's great that you become a doctor and you go back to where you came from and you help your elders, and and help them. I think I'm a real big advocate for patient advocacy, and so there's so many people who unfortunately they end up sick, and then they don't understand what the doctor is telling them, and then they make a wrong decision because the doctor didn't explain it well. And so it's really important that they have an advocate like that. And if you have a doctor that you know is from your neighborhood, city, whatever, and you know their family, you can trust them. So that's why I think it's so important, and I really do encourage young women to become doctors, and especially in these communities where there's a very, very low number of minority physicians, period. So I really do encourage young ladies to please, please, if you have any interest in science and math, to, not just think about engineering, but think about medicine as well. I think that is all. And thank you so much for this opportunity, Elvira and Harriet.